Good afternoon, everybody. 2 p.m. and I want to keep the schedule that. My name is Marcelo Scalds. I'm the chair of the safety committee, and I have been repeating that for the last 3 times, like say. And it's a pleasure to me to introduce Carrie Reppert. Carrie has a BA in English from the Sterling College in Kansas. She has a MA in TESOL Applied Linguistics at Iowa State University. She has been working for us in the ELP for 10 years, something like that. And we're going to give it Carrie 30 minutes to present the same topic that we have been showing here. I'm not going to repeat because it's too long. And I know that my accent sometimes creates problems for people. So anyways, Carrie.
Okay, I think the mic is on. Hopefully the recording is good. Thank you, Marcellus. As he said, I've been with the English language program for 10 years, coming up here next month in June. And I'm not bored yet. And I think that's largely, when I started at the ELP, thinking about 5 years seemed like a long time. And I think part of the reason I'm still excited about what we're doing here is because I've had the chance to do a bunch of different things within the ELP. So during the presentation, I'm not going to talk a lot about myself. I've worked with a lot of you. If you have questions about that at the end, you have time to ask. During my time in the ELP, though, I've taught classes from the beginning English up through the graduate support classes for students who are working on their graduate degrees. I was a part of the curriculum and assessment team, working as the writing curriculum chair for a while. I served with student services as an advisor, so working with students who are new to the ELP, as well as with students who are transitioning from the ELP into the university. And then after that, I was the self-study coordinator for our recent reaccreditation process. I've also had the chance to be involved with a couple of short program curriculum development projects and delivering that curriculum in a couple different locations. And then lately, my job, in addition to teaching, has been less defined, but involving some faculty support, doing things like new faculty orientation. So today, as Marcella said, I shortened the title to get it to fit on the slide better, but I'll be sharing with you some ideas about academics in the ELP, and then after that, some ideas or maybe my approach to leadership a little bit, and I think how that contributes to collegiality and enables in a climate that helps build consensus. So if we can click, yeah, there we go. If I'm doing my math right, I think that this year is the 30th anniversary of the ELP. I think we're 30 years old this year. And I really believe that from the beginning of the program, we've had a strong academic foundation. A lot of things have changed over the years. Student populations have changed. The type of classes we offer has changed. But I think we have had a strong academic foundation, and we can continue to build on that. I think we have a very strong team in place with faculty members who serve as the curriculum chairs. So there's a lot of good stuff that we have to work with. Some of the things that I think we need to continue working through, we've got our, we're in the middle of our current curriculum and assessment review cycle. It's something we do on a 4 or 5 year basis. Obviously, we need to finish that process well. There's a few things we need to resolve that we've been talking about for a while, like using the coordinated tests for placement, a couple of things that we just need to decide how we're gonna work through. A couple of things that I would like to see us do a little bit differently with this process are, one, get some feedback from teachers about common concerns that they have in whatever they're teaching, and then try to come up with some resources from the field that directly address those concerns. So whether they're research articles, things that specifically address concerns that teachers have. And TESOL has its 50th anniversary this year, so I think as a part of the curriculum and assessment review cycle, we have a nice chance to just take a snapshot of the field of second language assessment and language teaching, and maybe every 5 years be able to reflect back on what's changed since our last cycle and how does that inform the teaching and assessment that we do here at K-State, as well as following up on the recommendations from the last cycle. And I think this process also, although it's about curriculum and assessment, it gives us chances to tie in with advising, with student services, with the ITC, with the tutoring, to figure out how we're supporting our students academically through all of those different parts of the ELP. We have the accreditation interim report coming up in a couple of years. I think this is actually nice timing as we do a little bit of restructuring within the program to think about, are the new processes and situations, or not situations, but the structures that we're putting in place, are those in line with best practices in the field and with what will help us accomplish what we need to do in the next 5 years. Accreditation involves a lot of documentation, and I think it's a great opportunity for, I'd like to see us go beyond transparency. Transparency is important, making sure that information is available to people, but I would like to make sure that in addition to being transparent, things are clear and consistent. So making sure that the information isn't just available, but that there is clarity and consistency in how it's communicated to people, and then how those things are implemented across the program. Short program development is another opportunity we have. Challenge as always, the budget is a big one right now. And short programs give us the opportunity to try to expand the reach of the program. I think over the years we've done a nice job of tailoring different programs to specific requests that have come in from different populations. I think now is an ideal time though to rethink that process a little bit and put a structure in place so that we're not always scrambling when a new opportunity comes up, but we have a little bit more of a process in place to work through that. Something that I think might be useful for this, when I started in the program, we had 7 faculty members, more or less. In a program of that size, it's very easy to know who knows what and what's going on. We have a lot more teachers right now. I think something that might be useful would be developing a skills inventory, which is a way for faculty to say, this is something I have experience in, these are interests I have, this is special skills or knowledge that I have, and so that when a new opportunity comes up, in addition to putting out an open call for people to participate, if we have a list of things where people have self-identified as, I know about this, I'm interested in this, we have a list of people that we can already contact for ideas or for input on a new project if we know what that project is about, because we have a lot of people who know a lot of different things. Following up on that, I'm really excited that this position includes faculty support and development. That's not something that's fit into any particular part of the ELP very clearly in the recent past. With faculty support and development, I think there are several aspects to this. One is mentoring, and I see that as needing to take a couple of different formats. One would be for new faculty members. People may come to us just out of grad school, or they may come with years of experience in the field. And I think that the type of mentoring that we have, it may not be bringing them up to speed with what's happening in the field, but helping them learn about the culture in the ELP, right? Becoming familiar with our culture. I think we also need a more clearly defined type of mentoring for faculty who are in need of support or development for whatever reason, whether that's identified through a student complaint or some other demonstrated need for a faculty member to really get some support in a certain area. And I think that we need to clearly communicate to faculty even before it becomes an issue, right? So someone would know before they would need this type of mentoring what to expect, right? If there is some sort of a problem, what process would they go through? How would they know when it was done? How would they know if they had successfully completed that? Something I would be really interested in implementing is a peer coaching model. At Colorado State University, they did something like this in their English program, where faculty identify things that they would like to improve on, and then it's faculty driven, right? So I know that Carol's really good at something particular, and so I approached her and said, would you coach me on this? And I identify some goals, and then she works with me over time to help me develop those. Maybe nobody likes the idea, but we had a committee several years ago who made recommendations as a part of our program review cycle about mentoring, and so I think it would be good to go back and look at the recommendations that committee made, look at the research that they did. I know a few people in the program have very recently done training on mentoring, and so looking at that information, you know, I've got a bunch of ideas up here, but none of these are things that can be decided in a vacuum, right? It's going to take input from throughout the program. I'd also really like to see us facilitate opportunities for faculty within the program to share with each other. I was very impressed. We had our professional development day a couple weeks ago, and people shared things they had presented at conferences, things they'd learned at conferences. We have a lot of people who know a lot of amazing things, and I don't think we take enough time to learn from each other. I know that I could certainly improve a lot of things by learning from other people in the program. Related to that, but on a slightly different note, I'd like to see us be sure that we're supporting our release time faculty, that they're in a difficult position, sometimes caught between faculty and administrators with demands from both sides. And I think we need to communicate more clearly to people who go into those positions what the expectations for the positions are, how long that position would last, how that position will affect their evaluation, as well as being sure that we're providing adequate support for those people. Data management and sharing. We have a ton of data available to us through CASIS. This is great and also a headache. But I would really like to see us make the best use of that data possible. We have a lot of reports that are available to us, and I think that we need to be sure that we're using that to the best of our ability, and then communicating it with people clearly and systematically. A quotation I like about information says, a flood is as bad as a drought. And so if we're not sharing any information, that's a real problem. If we're also just doing an information dump, that is also a problem. So I'd like us to really think through the data that we have available, which pieces of that data are useful to certain people within the program or outside of the program. There may be other units in OIP that some of the data that we have could be very useful to them. And so thinking through what we need, what other people need, and how we can share that with other people. I'd like us to make sure that we use the data from our students as well. We do a program evaluation and an exit survey with students who are leaving the program. I also think it would be interesting to give faculty the opportunity to share information that comes from their TVALs that's not directly about them as a teacher or about their class, but that's related to the curriculum or the program. Sometimes we get comments in those TVALs that have nothing to do with us in the classroom, but they could inform programmatic decisions or curriculum decisions. And I think providing a venue for people to share that information would be valuable. And then lastly, we have a lot of faculty who are serving on a lot of committees within the program, and I think as we're rethinking the leadership structure, rethinking the committee structure would also be a wise thing to do. Making sure that the committees have a clear mandate or a clear purpose so that they know what they're being asked to do. And also that they have a chance to share that with other parts of the program. I've been serving on the PD committee, and I feel like we always have the chance to talk about what we're doing, but I don't have a sense for what the other committees are doing. I know they're working hard on things, and I think it would be really good for people to be able to know what different is happening in different committees throughout the program. So, okay, so that's academics. Talking a little bit about sort of my approach to leadership. Before I started the self-study, the accreditation coordination process, I realized that I felt not very prepared for that task. So one of the resources that I relied on is this book by LaFasto and Larson about leading teams. And this quotation that they have brings out a couple of things that I really like. We are going to have problems to deal with. We're going to have a lot of different voices contributing to solving those problems, and we need to hear those voices. So this involves listening to faculty, listening to staff, listening to students, listening to other people in leadership, and listening to people outside of the program, departments on campus, other units within OIP, the graduate school. And listening, part of that is an attitude, right? Being open to hear things. But another important aspect of that is having channels for people to provide feedback. And I would like to see some more clear channels for feedback established in a variety of ways. As an example, I've had a release time positions for several years in the program, and in none of those positions was there really a way for people to provide feedback to me about how I was doing my job, right? I was serving the faculty in a number of different ways, but I didn't really have a way other than people just chatting with me to tell me how they thought I was doing my job. We get T-vals from the students, and sometimes they're crazy, but a lot of times they're really helpful. And so I think in the same way, it would be helpful to be able to get feedback from faculty about how we're doing our jobs, and for administrators as well. Andy Curtis, the past president of TESOL, a couple years ago, he wrote an article about leadership in the field, and he was writing about leading from the periphery. He was talking about being a person of color in the field of English language teaching, and how people often have difficulty seeing him as a leader in the field since he doesn't look like what they expect an English teacher to look like. In the article, he said that leading from the periphery is sometimes easier than leading from the front. He said, if you're leading from the front, you can't see what's going on behind you. and I think that we should provide our administrators a chance to see what's behind them, right? A way for the faculty to provide some feedback that hasn't been available before. So, this idea that team problem solving is not harmony, we don't like the idea of conflict. In some leisure reading that I was doing, I came across the idea of nonviolent communication, and I don't really know anything about that, but one part of the article really hit home for me. It suggested that instead of seeing conflict as a problem, we could approach it as a gift and as a possibility. And we have a wealth of perspectives in the ELP. People from all sorts of different places with all sorts of training, all sorts of ideas, all sorts of experiences. And I really do think that that is a gift that we have. Bringing those different perspectives together, I think it makes us stronger than if we all had the same idea about something to begin with. So just taking the opportunity to see things that we disagree about initially, not as something to ignore or to try to cover up, but to really be able to work through that together constructively and come out with something stronger in the end. I already talked a little about the book by LaFasto and Larson. They had 6 characteristics of effective leadership. And toward the end of the time with the accreditation review, Tom Champeau came and spoke here at the leadership retreat at K-State about building teams for successfully completing K-State 2025 or something. And it just so happened they both have these 6 things, and I really like both of these, and I think that they have several things to help us with. They both start with looking at the goal, and sometimes I think we feel like that's a luxury, but I really think that taking the time to think about why we're doing what we're doing rather than just what it is that we're doing and how we can do that is important. Champeau said that in order for the goal to be common, first it has to be clear. So in order to know what we're doing, we have to clearly communicate that first before we can expect people to buy into it. So being careful in how we're communicating that. The other thing about the goal, I really think that this is important at a programmatic level. So for the ELP as a whole, why are we doing what we're doing? Down into what happens in the classroom. How are we communicating to students, you know, about the class objectives? And that's why we're doing these things in class, right? How does what we're doing in class today affect your outcomes? I think it goes all the way up through the program, from that day-to-day class stuff up to what we're doing at a programmatic level. So I would just like us to be able to take some time to think about that goal. A couple years ago during the program review, we looked at the mission statement. That's something that we do during that process. We didn't make any changes to it that time, and that's fine. These are some suggestions that I had made for changing it, and they may not be the right suggestions, but I do think it's valuable for us to think about, you know, why it is that we're doing what we're doing. I think the fact that we enrich the diversity of the university community is something we should celebrate, you know, and be glad about. And I think contributing to the field of English language teaching is also something that we do, you know, but I think that that's something that we should clearly state that we want to do and have something as a goal for our program. Okay. Oops. Okay, well, I guess the show's over. Okay. The next characteristic that LaFasto and Larson talk about is ensuring a collaborative climate. That's easy to say, a little harder to do. I think it ties into some of the things Champeau talked about, an alignment of authority and accountability, making sure that people have an idea of what it is that we expect from them and that we can be held accountable for that, but that we have the tools to do what we need, what we're asked to do, right? A high level of trust. We're asked to address the idea of building consensus. It's very, very difficult to build consensus if there is not some trust within that relationship. And it's really a two-way street. I have to trust the person that I'm working with. They have to reciprocate and trust me back. That's not something that we can legislate or impose or decree. It's something that has to be built over time and maintained. And it goes hand in hand with respect for the people that we're working for, whether it's colleagues or students. And I think that the willingness and ability to manage conflict is also a key aspect of ensuring we have a collaborative climate. We are going to disagree about things, and being able to work through those together constructively is, I think, a very important thing. Building confidence, demonstrating sufficient technical know-how. I tried drawing all these arrows to show how I thought the two things were related to each other. Be glad you don't have to see those arrows. Building confidence, I think that goes with the trust, the respect. Demonstrating sufficient technical know-how. You may think, what technical know-how do English teachers need? Some of it is related to English, right? We need to know what we're teaching. Some of it, I think, is related to the tools that we use, Cases, Canvas, different things like that. And yeah, so hopefully I can demonstrate sufficient technical know-how. Obviously, my PowerPoint skills are limited. Setting priorities is key. I think that's related to our purpose. It's also related to this ability to work through conflict. We have a lot of different things on our lists, on our desks, and being able to work together to establish some common priorities among those things is not always easy, but I think it's important. And on both lists, I thought it was really interesting, the idea of managing performance or looking at results is last. That is not to say that they're least important, but that we can't necessarily start with that, right? There's a bunch of other things that go into achieving those things before we just look at the results. So you can ask me questions if you think I haven't addressed the topic. We were asked to talk about how, as one of 3 leaders in the ELP, we would advance the academic affairs of the ELP while building consensus and contributing to a collegiate environment. And I understand that the idea of one of 3 leaders in the ELP is about having a clear leadership structure. And I think that that's very important. I also believe, though, that people throughout the ELP have demonstrated and will continue to demonstrate leadership in a variety of different roles, not as a part of the official leadership, but from student workers at the front desk dealing with students who come in with problems, to student workers assisting people in the lab, to graduate assistants who are teaching students, maybe even managing data, to advisors who are working with students through very difficult situations, and faculty members in their classes every day. Last fall, we had a potluck. It was not long after the bombings in Paris happened, and I just remember looking at that room full of students and colleagues laughing and eating, and students, some of whom had gone to great effort to prepare these traditional dishes, with things that are hard to find in Manhattan, Kansas, and showing their teachers. And I was just very happy to be there at that time. We have a lot of voices encouraging us to be afraid of each other, of people who are different from us, of all sorts of things in the world. And I think that the ELP is a place where, in a lot of little ways, we counter that message of fear. And I'm very, very grateful to be a part of that team, whether it is as a faculty member or as the associate director for academics. So thank you.
So a question from Carrie, and I want to ask you to identify yourself for people that are watching this.
This is Laura Phillips Z. I'm an instructor in the English language program. Katie, I've been asking the same question of all the candidates. So could you address maybe with a specific example of how you would deal with settling like a debate or an issue if you have two different strongly held opinions, or and you have to make a decision and the decision is made? How would you deal with the people that are currently your coworkers and then you would be in a supervisory position? What would your approach to that be?
Are you, and it sounds to me like it's two questions.
Okay.
One, well, you tell me if I'm right. One of which is, how would I decide between competing priorities if there's two people who have very strong beliefs that are opposite to each other? And how would I make the transition from working as a peer with these people to someone who's in a position that's making a decision?
My intention was more the second one, but
Okay.
I think the first one is also a good question. So
This made my job harder.
Since that's part of the process, if you wanted to say something about that, that would be great too. I mean, that's what this person will be doing.
Mm-hmm. Regarding the first part of the question, I think, a lot of it depends on what that specific situation is. I think back to a time during the accreditation cycle, CEA had changed one of the standards, and we realized that the summer curriculum we were offering was no longer adequate because we were assessing students the same way we assess them at fall and spring, but we were teaching them for many fewer hours, 8 weeks and a lot fewer class hours. So we needed to, before the accreditation process started, we needed to make a decision about how to address that issue. I presented to the leadership team several different options. There was one I preferred. They all wanted the other one, and that's what we did. So I think, it's making the decision between the different options is going to be based on the needs of the program, the resources that we have available, and that specific situation. I think it's important that both people understand that their perspective has been heard, even if, regardless of what decision is made, that they realize that it's not about one person over the other, but it's about the needs of the program at that time. Regarding the transition from a peer to I don't know if it's a supervisor, I'm not very sure about the role exactly. I think in some ways, this position will be very challenging for whoever has it. In some ways, I think it will make relating to situations like that a little easier for me than I've been in a very odd, not quite faculty member, definitely not administrator role. And I've had no authority, right? So I've built up some credibility, but I haven't really had authority to do anything. And so I think that and authority is not everything. But there would be some authority that comes with this role. I think I've done a pretty good job of being able to separate my personal relationships with people from my working relationships with them. Manhattan is a small town. We're going to see people outside of work in a lot of different situations. So I think key to making this transition will be being able to keep that line of professionalism intact, and so that people clearly understand that the decision is not about a personal thing, but it's about what's best for the program. Does that answer the question?
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, Katie. This is Kristen Oberheide from International Admissions, and I've also asked the same question to other applicants. You may already have addressed what I'm going to ask you, but what do you think would be one of your biggest challenge or growth area in adjusting to the new role if you were hired in it?
Okay. It's something that I am sure I don't know enough about, and I don't know that this is maybe the biggest thing that I would need, but I'm sitting here looking at Christina, who's probably forgotten more about assessment than I ever have known, and that is an area that I feel like I would need to prepare myself in more. I talked about using data, and that excites me, but it also scares me because I don't feel like I know quite enough about how to do that effectively. So I think that is one area. It may not be the most important, but I think it is key for this role. And that's something that immediately jumps to mind when I think about what would I need to learn about in order to do this job well. Mhm.
Okay, Katie, you talked about working through issues constructively, and that can mean different things to different people. And sometimes people can feel like, oh, if I say something, then it's going to be viewed as not constructive. So I guess what I'm asking you is, how would you define doing something constructively? Or do you have any ideas about that? Or, it's a tough question, I know.
You know, the thing about relating to each other is our intentions and our perceptions are not always the same, right? Even if my true intention is to be very constructive, somebody may perceive that as not constructive, and it has nothing to do with me. I think trying to maintain a climate where we demonstrate openness to hearing people, but also I think modeling respect in hearing what other people say and in how we communicate with people. I think for the leadership, that is a vital thing to do. There is no way that we can control other people's actions or reactions, but I think consistently modeling respect and professionalism in how we interact with other people is really key. That's not going to make it easy. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Christina, and I'm not asking the same question I've asked before. You listed tutoring when you were talking about different areas this position would be in charge of, and you said that it was a student support concept. So do you feel that the academic affairs director should be in charge of that, or should student services be in charge of that if it's a student support thing?
Okay, did I mention that in terms of talking about the curriculum and assessment review cycle? I did not mean to indicate that this person would be in charge of tutoring. I don't know where tutoring would fall, to be honest.
Where do you think it should fall?
I think it is clearly tied to academics. I would like to see a lot more connection between academics and advising, because they go together, right? Advising is here to help students succeed in their academic goals. So where it should be administratively, to be honest, I'm not sure, because we have a lot of structural questions to decide. At this moment, I might come down on the side of academics because I think it is a clearly academic thing. The ITC, though, is a whole nother question, and how that would fit in with student services. You know, it is a service to students as well. And there's the whole multiplying testing aspect that we have, you know, J1 interviews, speak tests, figuring out how those fit in to the location, because we're doing them at the TTC, and the structure. So I think with the TTC, I think we have some important questions to work out. If you ask me right now, I would say the tutoring maybe should come under the academic side of things. That may not be the best answer in the long run, but.
Hi, Katie. I'm going to be asking the same question. I'm currently coordinating the upper level writing curriculum, so it will have to do with writing. The writing curriculum, especially in upper levels, seems to be a little ambitious currently, and I think that it doesn't leave much time for students to practice and review what they study in class, and sometimes less is more. I feel that we need to look at the curriculum and make some modifications. Would you be willing to change a few things, and how would you address the issue? Thank you.
I would say yes. I think we should always be willing to change things. We don't want to do it willy-nilly, but I think that's what the curriculum and assessment review is about. As both our student populations change and as the university changes. I know in the past there was some disconnect between what students were doing in upper level writing and then what they were expected to do in like English 100, those classes, and I know that we tried to align things. So I think, yes, we should definitely be willing to change things. We certainly don't want to pile everything so high so that students can't accomplish what they need to. But we also want to make sure they're adequately prepared for whatever comes next in the university. So yeah, there might be a number of different ways to do that. But yes, I'm open to change. And, you know, it's been a long time since I've been closely involved with the curriculum, so I would have some things to learn about how you do things now. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I am Agnes Chikan, one of the instructors. I have two very different questions. The first one is, the ELP is a very interesting program. It is not a department. So do you have any vision for the ELP to be even more integrated in the K-State community? This will be the first. And then the next comes later. So
Okay.
It's like the ELP and the university.
I think that our integration into the university structure is a key strength that we have. I think it's a huge advantage that the ELP has compared to a lot of other programs that are similar at different places. And I think that we definitely need to work on strengthening that integration. There's different ways we serve the community, the university doing J1 interviews, speak testing, things like this. But we're also very academically tied to preparing students for their studies. I don't think I could say at this moment I have a vision for how to, you said strengthen the integration.
Make us serve the university better.
Okay, I do think that, especially as you know, we're in the middle of K-State 2025, making sure that what we're doing as a program is aligned with those things. You know, we've recently started a committee to look at research in that ELP, and I think that that's an important thing to work forward. I added that contributing to the field to my version of the ELP mission statement, because I think that that's something that we need to say that we do and then do. I think that that's a key component of being part of Kansas State University, is contributing to the development of the field, and our field is English language teaching and testing. So that would be one way where I would see us continuing to be involved. I also think that this gets tricky. At the moment, it's faculty members in the English language program have limited opportunities to be involved in different aspects of the university community due to the nature of our contracts. As term contract holders, there are a lot of things that we don't have access to. I think there are more ways in our current positions that we could be involved in the university, and I would like to see people be more involved in the wider university. But I do think that you know, the Board of Regents has opened the door to the possibility of new positions for non-tenure track faculty, and so I think that that is an important thing that the ELP will need to work through under the leadership of the OIP, to think what is available to us and what is possible in the next 5 or 10 years, and then how does that enable us to engage a little bit more with the university. I don't know if that addresses your question.
And sorry, Katie, I am going to give you a very challenging question because you are a humble person. And here we go. And I am acting more American than I can ever be. So please, Katie, tell us, why do you think you are the best candidate for this position? Because there are others who wrote it everywhere that they are the best. So please tell us, why are you the best? Persuade us. Thank you.
Agnes, I'm probably not going to give you the answer you want to this question. What I truly, truly want to see, I think that this juncture for the ELP is a very, very important one. There are a lot of challenges that we are facing, both internally and externally. And I truly, truly, truly want to see the person. I'm very glad the committee gets to make this decision and we don't have to, because I really do want to see the person who is best qualified to and suited to the needs of the ELP at this time. I do think that key to this role is going to be, the topic for the presentation today was as one of the 3 leaders of the ELP, right? And I do think that key to the ELP moving forward constructively is presenting a united front among the leadership. You know, all of the areas should inform each other, advising curriculum and the director as a whole leading us. I think over time I have demonstrated that I can and I will and I do work with everyone in the program. In investment, they always say past performance is no indication of future success. I intend to continue in the same manner I've started. So I would say that is probably, from my perspective, that would be what qualifies me the best for this position. I haven't looked at the other candidates' documents. I didn't watch their forum because I know what I wanted to say and what I have to offer. And if the committee's determination is that one of the other candidates is better suited at this time, I really want to see that person chosen instead of me, because I don't want to be put in a position where I'm going to let a bunch of people down. So I would be honored to do the position, but we'll see what happens.
Still have time.
Hi. So you said that you felt when you started the self-study that you were not very prepared. And then earlier you indicated that one of your areas of weakness might be assessment. So what would you do if you got this position to make yourself better qualified in that area?
Well, I have statistics for people who think they hate statistics on my table at home. That would be a start. You, I think, are a great resource, and I think as we figure out what we're doing with assessment, we've got the online testing, we're not quite sure where we're headed, I think, with the EPT. And assessment is a big thing. We've got the in-class assessment, both end of semester and throughout the semester. We've also got the EPT. What we need to do with those is a little bit different, but I think addressing both of those areas is important. So 1, I need to learn more about statistics. 2, I need to brush up on Bachman and Palmer, you know, those other testing people. It's easy to talk about reliability and validity of tests. But I think, you know, I need to go back and look at what are our test constructs and how can we really demonstrate reliability and validity of the different types of tests that we offer in the program. I'd also like to see, this is not exactly related, but I think it is. I'd like to, and maybe the chairs will tell me this is a bad idea, but I would like to see a more standardized process for feedback on the in-class assessments that we give. I know that, you know, the chairs are very different personalities, right? The tests we give are very different. The speaking test is really different from the writing test. But I think it would be good if teachers could expect a consistent way to provide feedback and a clear process for what they would know would happen to that feedback. How would they know if it was accepted or not, and how that decision was made? I'd like to see. That's not exactly related to what I don't know about assessment, but it is related, I think, to making sure that we have a strong assessment process.
Any other question?
Hey, Jack. A question kind of related to what you were just talking about, but more specifically to when you mentioned T-vals and talking about feedback, both from students and faculty. What are your thoughts on SLO-based evaluation questions for students? Something, you know, like a regular T-val with some type of Likert scale, strongly agree, neutral, whatnot. How well have you learned X SLO?
And are you saying this as a mechanism for teacher evaluation or just for feedback into the program?
For feedback into the program.
Okay. Okay. I think the teacher evaluation question is something we need to reopen. We had a conversation about it. We did a lot of stuff, and then it's just sat there since that time. I don't know about integrating students' perceptions of their achievement of the objectives into teacher evaluations. I do think the idea, though, of collecting students' perceptions of their achievement or teaching on the SLOs, I think that would be interesting to see, and I would not necessarily be opposed to it if we could figure out some of the we have a lot of SLOs, so figuring out a way to be sure that we're not overwhelming students with what we're asking. It could be on a cycle, so this year, and we look at these 3 SLOs in each class or something. Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Any other question? Well, if not, I would like, you want to? Oh. Can I wait? I'll finish.
Katie, this is Lena Chakrabarty from the English Language Program. My question is not one that I've asked everyone, because everyone plays a different role within the program and all the candidates are from within the program. So my question is, you have worked with us for 10 years. You have worked with us in many different roles. You were one of my first advisors, and then I gave you up for the CEA, review report. You've worked with Mary for a very long time. As you mentioned, you've been put in a position where you really didn't have power, but you have been put in all kinds of tricky, service-related positions. So as you step into this new position, how do you see yourself not just deal with peers, and then now you've become a supervisor in some respects, but how do you see yourself as evolving into that role of the third, in that triad, where the people you'll be working with will in some ways be your mentors and people who were your supervisors? Like how do you see yourself stand up to strong personalities?
Okay, my dad says I'm really stubborn. I'd like to, spin that as perseverance or something. That can be good and that can be bad. I am very grateful to have worked with you and with Mary. I've learned a lot from both of you. I respect both of you a lot, and I disagree with both of you a lot. and I really don't think that, I'm afraid to say that. I truly don't. One of the things I'm most concerned about, or would be most concerned about in stepping into this role, is since I have been in the ELP for so long, I think it could be easy for me to think, oh, I know what that problem is, or I know what those people think about that, or I know what the issues are here, when really I don't. Advising has changed a lot since I was part of it. Curriculum and assessment has changed a lot since I'm part of it. I haven't taught, there's a lot of classes that I haven't taught for a long time. And there's no way that one person can know what all 40 faculty members think about anything. So that's not directly related to your question. I think for me to transition into this role effectively, I really need to take to heart what I said about listening to people throughout the program, being particularly aware to realize what I don't know that I think I might know. I think I work well with you and with Mary. I think Mary and I complement each other in that I think she's great at seeing the big picture, and I'm really good at details. And sometimes I can get hung up on those, but they're important as well. So I think as one of the 3 people in leadership, I think it would take a little while for us to figure out exactly how that worked best. But I could see it being a very productive partnership. I don't know. Yeah.
We have time for one more question. No? Well, I would like to thank Karen and thank you guys for coming out.